Hello YouTube and welcome to a new video. This installment is the second part of the strategy lessons that we previously did, and we're going to continue from lesson 22 up to lesson 26. So let's try this now. Again, it's been a little while. In this position, black just played rook a5 to f5. Black was down by one pawn and had decent drawing chances. His last move didn't have any threats and was probably intended to give his king additional support. Now, how does white force a winning endgame? Let's find out, shall we? So, how to proceed? I would very much like to have that rook on f5 somewhere else. Let's say on f1. Then I could check on f7 and win that rook. But I don't see a good way to do that right now, at least. I mean, I have g4, but the rook doesn't have to stay on the f file. What we could consider though is rook a to e7, trying to mate black. So black is kind of forced to play pawn to g5. And what would then happen if rook h to f7 check? Well, the only move, king g6, and then rook back to g7 check. King goes back to f6, and now h captures g5 check. Rook captures on g5, and now rook e to f7 check. King to e6. Now rook captures g6, or just simply rook to g6 check. Then the black king could take or defend by moving his king to e5, let's say. No, what am I talking about? So yeah, rook here to there, then king to e6. There's a rook on g5 then. What? I thought that I had this somehow. But then, because then he can just take on f7 if I take this rook on g5. Annoying. Rook here to e7, g5, rook h to f7 check, king g6. Then maybe I could play h5 check, picking up that rook. h5, and then if king h6, maybe I have rook to g6 check. King captures on h5. It looks really, really strong. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Unfortunately for black, the rook got in the way of the black king's path, giving white nice tactical opportunities. After rook a to e7, the checkmate rook h f7 is nearly unstoppable, providing the king with a safe square on e5. But now white will have a way to force winning simplifications. So rook h to f7 check, king to e5. And then rook captures f5 check, king or pawn captures, doesn't matter. Rook captures e6, check, or if the king is on f5, the king would still have to take that. And then pushing g4. And after g4, simply moving our king towards the queen side here, taking advantage of this pawn on b6. Forcing the black king to e5 and keeping both black rooks under surveillance. I mean, I can do it the other way too, with rook captures e6 first, but I don't like the fact that after king captures e6, rook captures f5, king captures f5. I don't have the immediate g4 pawn push because the king is keeping that square for his by the king, like the king is guarding that square, trading off one of the rooks to get closer to a pure king and pawn ending here. And now with all the rooks off of the board, white will have a winning king and pawn endgame. Black had a decent drawing chance here, but his move rook b5 to f5 presented white with an opportunity to force trades of all the rooks, transposing into an easily won pawn endgame. Yeah, I kind of like that. Really shows that if you have the opportunity to actually trade down in a winning king and pawn endgame, let's say, then why not? Why give your opponent any chances with two rooks on the board? The problem with two rooks is that a pawn up or a pawn down doesn't really matter. It's probably going to end in a draw anyways if you play the correct moves. Not always though. I'm not saying that every single rook and pawn endgame is a draw, but they have a tendency to be draw-ish. Let's continue. In this position, black just played the surprising queen d8 captures g5, winning a piece. How should white react to stop this shocking turn of events? So, first of all, if we capture that queen right now, then knight to f3 with a check, king to f2, knight takes g5, and here's a knight up. That's not good. Something we could consider is playing our queen to c3 or b2, but I don't really like the fact that he still has knight to f3 check, winning the rook as well. So what if we instead tried something like queen to f2? Or actually, is black up a piece here? Because as far as I'm concerned, all the available squares from g5 is occupied by white pieces once he is captured on g5. So queen captures g5, knight f3 check, king g2, knight captures g5, h4, and where does this knight go? On e6, he's getting eaten by my pawn on d5, and on e4, same thing, and on f3, king, h3, king, and these two pawns are actually blocking in that knight. So I'm going to say that this is kind of safe to play. As best as we try to anticipate opponents' moves, it isn't rare that our opponent makes a striking move that catches us completely off guard. The best is to stay collected and as if nothing major happened. Although you should see this before going into this, of course. But it's a nice resource. This is not what it says in the lesson, by the way, but it's a nice resource to find something like that when you're in dire straits, so to speak, when there's nothing else to do. Here, black is temporarily sacrificing the queen for the knight to regain it back on the next move. But, as we will see, this does not prove hurtful to us at all. Only after this move can white relax. Black's dramatic sacrifice resulted in trading down to nearly equal rook endgame. Stay cool and collected even after opponents striking moves. I agree. Lesson number 24, shall we? Black just played queen from c7 to c3, looking to trade queens. But what did he miss, and can you find the opportunity to quickly win the game? Let's find out. So, first of all, we have this knight e7 check. That is kind of neat. Knight e7 check, the king would have to move either to g7 or h8. If knight captures, then we simply capture on c3. And that seems kind of awful for black. So I don't think he can do that. So knight e7 check. Let's say king to g7 first. Actually, we might even have queen to h6 threatening a mate on g7 right now, as a matter of fact. We really need to calculate queen captures e1 though. So queen h6, queen captures e1 check, king g2, knight to e3 check, and let's say king to h3, queen f1 check, king to g4, queen captures f3 check, then king to h4, knight captures f5 check, bishop captures f5, and then queen captures f5. Alright. So what about in this position after queen h6, queen captures e1 check, king g2, knight e3 check, king h3. What if black chooses to, after queen f1, what if white after queen f1 check chooses to go to h4 immediately? Then knight captures f5 check, of course. Bishop captures f5. Then queen c4 check. Then f4. And let's say rook to d8. Bishop captures h7, king h8, bishop to g6, king to g8, queen to h7 check, king to f8, and we do not have queen captures f7 checkmate because the queen is standing on c4 guarding that pawn. Really annoying. Queen h6 check, queen h6, queen captures e1 check, king g2, knight e2, e3 check. What if we just capture that knight? Knight captures e3. Queen captures e3 is lethal due to queen captures h7. So after knight captures e3, queen d2 check, king h3, queen captures d3. No, queen d2 check isn't possible because, yeah, it is because our knight is on e3. No, but e3 square is covered by both our queens and the queen and the knight, so the knight can't really go to e3. So queen h6, queen captures e1 check, king g2. If knight to e3, then we simply take it with our knight or the queen. Probably even better with the queen. I'm wrong, not with the queen. We have to take with the knight. Then queen d2 check. King h3, queen captures d3. And there's really no way for us to get that knight back to f5 because the queen is covering that square. Queen h6, queen captures e1 check, king g2, knight e3 check, king h3. My bishop is guarding f1. What am I talking about? He can't go queen f1 check. So he has to take there then. And then bishop captures, queen f1 check. King h4, queen from f1 to c4 check, f4. And still rook to d8 seems to hold on. Really tough to find a mate there. I'm not sure it can be found actually. One more time. Queen h6, bishop, queen captures e1 check, king g2. Wait, why can't I just play bishop to f1? I can just play bishop f1 in that case, and there's no more checks. He has queen e3 check, but then knight captures e3. Knight captures back, and then queen captures back. Alright, I'm going for that. Bishop back to f1 after queen captures e1. That's the missing part. Black was hoping to trade the queens and get into worse but manageable endgame. White seizes the opportunity, even though it seems very costly. The rook on e1 isn't defended any longer. But bishop f1 is the only move that actually mates, I believe. The most accurate. Black now has no more checks to bother white with. That is true. Rook to e8. Okay. Then we simply give him mate. Black's plan was to simplify, but white found the way to close out the deal by sacrificing the rook, setting up unstoppable checkmate. Yeah. So I missed this bishop f1 idea. The best idea. I looked at every possible other outcome, I believe, almost at least. I didn't find a way through because the queen on c4 will actually just defend the f7 square. So I do not have a checkmate if the bishop and queen would have to mate. Alright, let's go to lesson 25. Okay, in this position white just played rook g2 captures g7, and now it seems that white has a nice tactic to win material. But do you see the clever way to create a defense to prevent this? I do not, but let's find it. I'm guessing it has something to do with this knight and a pawn push, creating a check from the queen. But what is the tactic here then, anyways? Rook captures g7. And then rook captures g7, king captures g7, queen to g2, check, and then these two are one more than I would like. yeah. Queen g2 after the trades here are the general idea. But how to deal with that? White is also threatening to mate us in one move if we do not move or do something drastic here. So knight f2 check, bishop captures f2, or probably even queen captures f2, right? Maybe that's better, keeping that option of going to g2. So knight f2 check, queen captures f2, then d4 check, queen g2, but if queen captures g2, then rook 7 captures g2, and I do not have a follow-up. The queen on c6 is unprotected. So rook captures g7, rook captures g7. And then maybe then I could play knight to f2 check, queen captures f2, d4 check, rook 7 goes back to g2, or queen to g2, doesn't really matter. And then queen captures g2, queen captures g2, and we have nothing. Alright. What about knight g3 check immediately though? Forcing white to capture, or simply doing it first maybe. Capture first, and then knight g3. Nah. Knight g3 check, rook 7 captures g3, d4 check, rook 3 to g2, I don't see a breakthrough there. I don't. Tough one. Really tough one. What about rook captures g7? Rook captures back on g7 and then d4. Threatening a double check and discovered check. So then rook 7 to g2. and then rook captures e3. That looks very nasty for white. So captures d4. If white takes that pawn, then this is just checkmate, either knight to g3 or knight to f2. No, it's not. It's not. The king has g1 available, actually. But then queen to h1. Yeah, that is terrible. And then rook captures h2. Yeah, that's not pretty for white. So he can't really take. So after d4, the rook from 7 goes back to g2. I think is the only move. If queen to g2, threatening again a mate on g8, then what? Queen to g2, is that actually holding? Okay. But I'm kind of forced to do this anyways. Yeah, it says that playing the natural recapture because white was threatening a mate on g8, and giving away the knight on g3 or g5 doesn't do anything whatsoever. It didn't say that, but that's a fact. Rook captures g7. I really want to play d4. d4, queen g2. But I do not know where to put this knight. If knight g3 check, then rook captures g3. Then my queen is under attack, so I have to be aware of that. So I can't really recapture on g3. And queen captures g2 results in rook captures g2. So that's not an option. But d4, queen g2. What if I play rook to e3 immediately? Rook captures e3 now. That kind of puts white in a, at least a somewhat hard situation. Rook captures e3. If queen h5, rook captures e1, check, king g2. Then I can simply take on g7. What am I talking about? Yeah, so he can't defend both pieces. That's it. And if rook captures e3, queen captures e3, then d4, then the queen isn't allowed onto the g2 square immediately. But he could simply play queen to f3, but then I have king captures g7, right? Okay, so just capturing the rook. Rook captures e3 was not the best move. Probably it will end in a draw, or maybe white will win because of this pass pawn. And now knight to g5. Nope. Here then. Nope. Queen g6? Really? Knight g3 check, yeah. That is nice. That is really nice. Saving the rook from the attack and bringing it back to a good defensive position where it may come to g6 to guard it against attacks along the g file. White executed a tactic aimed at simplification. Black found an opportunity to interject an intermediate move and ended up with an extra exchange. That's kind of fun. I did not look at that move. Like, if I had just played on with the idea of just capturing on g7 twice and then thought about knight to g3 check, then that would be pretty nice. I did not. I was so occupied by looking at this diagonal. It really kind of forced my way of wrong thinking there, and it's really fun. Let's go for the last puzzle, or last lesson in this first or second now installment of strategy. Black just played bishop a5 to c7, attacking and pinning your knight. How should you react to this? Well, first of all, I have a fork on e6 if I take on c7, but after rook captures c7, king captures c7, knight to e6 check, let's say king to c8, knight captures d8, king captures d8. It's really hard for me to promote before black does, I believe. So let's say then king to g3. Well, maybe even king to g1 actually. Don't want to step in front of my own pawns, but yeah, no, king g3. Then king c7, king f4, king c6, king e4, king c5, king d3, king d5, and well, I am off chasing that b pawn. Black can collect all of my kingside pawns, can't he? It looks that way. Okay, let's calculate another line then. So the king is on d8, and I play f4. I play f4. King to e7, pawn to g4, king to f6, pawn to h4, king to e6, king to g3, king to d5, it's really hard to see how I'm going to win that. My king needs to go off chasing that b pawn. Ridiculous, right? So king g3, rook to f8, rook c4. Now king g3, then just simply g5. No, not g5. The rook is still going there. So maybe I need to play rook to f5. But then he has rook to d4. And after king g3, then he can play h6, threatening my rook. Then I can take. No, I can't take, because after rook to d4, I have to protect this knight somehow. Somehow I need to protect that then. Yeah. So there's no good way of defending this knight, other than probably g3 in that case, but that just leaves me with a double def pawn. That is not good. So I'm kind of forced to take on c7, but keeping the rooks on the board feels safer for me. Feels a bit safer. Okay, let's go for this. Nope. So then g3, the only other move, I believe, isn't it? Let me just see that again. Yeah. Black attacked and pinned the knight on f4. White must consider not only immediate threat, bishop captures f4 check, but also future attacks via rook f8 and g5. Yeah, that's what I saw as well. That's why I really didn't see any options there. Either capture on c7 or simply g3. That's what I found. But g3 feels so ridiculous, but still, keeping the rooks on the board will still give me a drawing chance, that's for sure. So I was too quick there. Yeah. So rook d2 check. Now king to g1 is not an option, because then he has bishop to b6, and king to h1 allows my king on the back rank, and black can roam freely. So I'm going to say knight to g2 here, blocking the check to avoid getting the king trapped on the back rank. Yeah. Black's move bishop a5 to c7 presented a serious threat as well as an opportunity for white. After careful consideration, we determined that the best response was addressing the black threat and settling for worse but defendable endgame. Yeah, I should have just done that. Other options allowed black to execute tactical or strategic ideas that led to white's demise. Alright, so that's it, guys. Recognizing the opponent's moves are now at 100%, even though the first 15 lessons of this was not included because of my microphone technical difficulties with my microphone there. But I really enjoyed this. Okay, so thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions or any ideas of what you want me to go through, or something that you would like to see, then please down, right down there. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe and have fun.